The hidden psychology behind why you can't save money. You make more money than your parents did at your age. Adjusted for inflation, maybe not. But on paper, the number in your bank account every month, it's more. And yet, somehow, at the end of each month, you look at your balance and feel that same quiet panic your parents probably felt. That same tightness in your chest. That same question you're embarrassed to say out loud. Where did it all go? You're not lazy. You're not irresponsible. You know what a budget is. You've downloaded the apps. You've made the spreadsheets. You've had the "I need to be better with money" conversation with yourself at least 40 times. And somehow, you're still standing in the same financial place you were a year ago. Maybe 2 years ago. And here's what nobody will actually tell you. It's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you drink too much coffee or eat too much takeout. The real reason you can't save money runs so much deeper than that. And the system you live inside is quietly, deliberately designed to make sure you never figure it out. What I'm about to tell you is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. Because this isn't about budgets. It's about your brain, your identity, your fears, and the invisible psychological war being waged on your wallet every single day. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand yourself differently. Let's start with something called the intention-action gap. Psychologists have studied it for decades. It describes the distance, sometimes enormous, between what people say they're going to do and what they actually do. And nowhere is this gap wider, more painful, or more misunderstood than with money. Every January, millions of people decide this is the year. This is the year they pay off the card, build the emergency fund, start the investment account. And by March, the resolve is gone. Not because they forgot, not because they stopped caring, but because something far more powerful took over. Desire. Not discipline versus laziness. That's too simple. And frankly, it's the narrative that keeps you feeling guilty instead of informed. The real battle is between your future self and your present self. And your present self wins almost every time. Here's why that matters. Your brain doesn't actually experience your future self as you. Brain imaging studies show that when people think about their future selves, the neural patterns look nearly identical to when they think about a stranger. A complete stranger. So when you decide to save money for future you, you're essentially donating to someone you've never met, someone you don't feel particularly close to, someone who exists only as an abstraction. Meanwhile, present you is tired. Present you just had a hard week. Present you deserves something. And that's not weakness. That's neuroscience. But here's where it gets darker. Because the system knows this about you. Every major retail platform, every app, every algorithm, they've all been engineered around one fundamental truth. Your willpower is a finite resource, and they are very patient. They will wait until you're exhausted, emotionally depleted, mildly bored, and then, ping, a notification, a sale, a limited time offer, you might also like. They call it frictionless shopping for a reason. The friction, the walk to the store, the conversation with a salesperson, the physical act of handing over cash, that friction was actually protecting you. It was giving your brain time to say, wait, do I actually need this? Now that friction is gone, and with it went a psychological guardrail you didn't even know you had. Think about the last time you bought something online at 11 p.m. Was that a considered financial decision? Or was that your depleted prefrontal cortex losing a fight to dopamine? This is the dirty secret of modern consumer culture. The dopamine hit from buying something new is real, measurable, and fleeting. It lasts, on average, about 48 to 72 hours. Then the thing becomes background noise. The shoes go in the closet. The gadget sits on the desk. The excitement evaporates. But the credit card statement? That stays. And so you need the next hit. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The idea that humans rapidly adapt to changes in their circumstances, good or bad, and return to a relatively stable baseline of happiness. You buy the car. You feel amazing. 3 months later, it's just the car. The upgrade, the vacation, the renovation, the new phone. Each one gives you that temporary lift. Each one becomes normal. And each one costs money you promised your future self you'd save. The treadmill keeps moving. You keep running. And your bank account stays exactly where it was. But there's something even more insidious happening underneath all of this. Something most people never want to examine too closely because it's uncomfortable. It has to do with identity. Ask yourself, and be honest, what does your spending say about who you think you are? Because whether you realize it or not, every purchase you make is partly an identity statement. The coffee shop you go to, the car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the clothes you wear to the office. These aren't just choices. They're signals. Social signals sent to the people around you, and more importantly, to yourself. We live in an era of what researchers call status anxiety, the awareness, often subconscious, that you are constantly being evaluated by others, and the fear that if you cut back, if you don't have the right things, the right lifestyle, the right aesthetic, you will be seen as less successful, less worthy. And this fear is not irrational. In a world where social media turned ordinary life into a highlight reel, where everyone's vacation looks like a magazine spread and everyone's home looks like a furniture catalog, the psychological pressure to look financially stable is enormous. Even when you're not. Maybe especially when you're not. There's a term for this: lifestyle creep, the phenomenon where as income rises, spending rises to match it, almost automatically, almost unconsciously, leaving savings completely untouched. You get the raise, suddenly your grocery budget expands. You upgrade the apartment. You start saying yes to the nicer restaurant. None of these decisions are made with malice. None of them feel extravagant in the moment. They feel like the natural next step. They feel like what someone at your income level does. And that's exactly the trap. Here's something that will make you genuinely uncomfortable. The average person earning a middle-class salary today has a lifestyle that would have seemed luxurious to their parents. Streaming services, restaurant deliveries, fitness subscriptions, international travel, and yet feels perpetually financially stressed. Why? Because we've normalized luxury while simultaneously watching real wealth building become harder. Housing prices in most major cities have outpaced wage growth by enormous margins. A starter home that a single-income family could buy in 1985 now requires 2 incomes, a large down payment, and years of saving, and still feels out of reach. The rent is too high to save. But the shame of not owning is too loud to ignore. College debt is still defining the financial trajectories of people in their 30s. Retirement feels like a joke or a fantasy, depending on your mood. And the entire time you're navigating this economic landscape that is genuinely harder than what the previous generation faced, the marketing machine is quietly whispering, "You deserve a treat." And the worst part? You believe it. Because you do deserve a treat. You're exhausted. You're trying. And somewhere between genuine self-care and financially devastating avoidance, the lines got completely blurred. Let's talk about something nobody in the personal finance world wants to say out loud. Saving money is emotionally hard. Because for a lot of people, and maybe for you, money is not just money. Money is security. Money is proof. Proof that you're doing okay. Proof that you're not your parents' mistakes. Proof that you belong in the room. And when that's what money means, spending it on visible things feels rational because you're buying proof. You're buying belonging. You're buying the feeling of being fine. That's not financial illiteracy. That's psychological coping. And you cannot budget your way out of a coping mechanism. You have to understand where it came from first. Research in financial psychology shows that people who grew up in financially unstable households often develop one of two relationships with money as adults. Extreme hoarding, where the compulsive need to save, to never spend, to always have a buffer, or the opposite, impulsive spending as a form of emotional regulation. A way of feeling control when the future feels uncertain. A way of experiencing abundance, even temporarily, when scarcity is what you know. Neither of these is a character flaw. Both of them are survival responses. And both of them will quietly sabotage you if you never look at them directly. Now, I want to introduce you to a concept called financial avoidance. And I want you to sit with this one, because it might explain more about your situation than anything else I've said. Financial avoidance is the psychological tendency to avoid engaging with your finances when they feel threatening. To not open the bank statements, to not check the balance before buying something, to not do the math on the credit card interest, to constantly postpone the financial conversation you know you need to have with your partner, with yourself. It's not laziness. It's anxiety. Financial anxiety is one of the most common and least discussed forms of chronic stress. And like all anxiety, it tends to make the thing you're avoiding worse, which makes the anxiety worse, which makes the avoidance worse. A perfect, exhausting loop. Studies have shown that financial stress activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Your brain, under financial pressure, literally hurts. And so it does what brains do with pain. It looks for relief. It looks for distraction. Sometimes that distraction is a purchase. Sometimes it's just not looking at the numbers. Either way, the debt grows quietly in the background while you look somewhere else. But the real problem goes deeper than individual psychology, because we're not just fighting our own brains here. We're fighting a culture that has completely redefined what normal looks like financially. 30 years ago, debt was embarrassing. It was something you kept private. Today, it's infrastructure. It's the baseline architecture of a modern middle-class life. Student loans, car payments, mortgages, credit cards, buy now, pay later. The entire system has been restructured to make borrowing the default and saving the exception. And embedded in this system is a quiet but powerful message. You don't need to save for things, you can just have them now. The friction of waiting, which used to teach financial patience almost automatically, has been removed, replaced by instant gratification and deferred consequence. And the consequences do come. They always come. But they come 3 years later, when the promotional rate expires, and the minimum payment doubles, and the thing you bought on credit is long forgotten, already replaced by the next thing. This isn't an accident. Debt is an enormously profitable business. The less you save, the more you borrow. The more you borrow, the more interest you pay. You're not failing at the financial system. You're doing exactly what the financial system was designed for you to do. Here's where things get genuinely strange. Neuroscientists studying purchasing behavior discovered something that should have changed consumer culture forever, but somehow barely made headlines. When people pay with cash, they feel the purchase differently. There's a measurable neural response, sometimes called the pain of paying, that's significantly reduced when you swipe a card or tap a phone. The physical act of handing over money activates loss aversion in the brain. It makes the purchase feel real, weighted, significant. Cards remove that feeling almost entirely. Digital payments remove it even more. Subscriptions, where the money leaves your account automatically, invisibly, remove it completely. And so you might be paying for 4 streaming services, 2 software subscriptions, a gym membership, a meal kit delivery, a music platform, and 3 apps you downloaded and forgot. And none of it feels like spending, because you never feel it leave until you look at your statement. And even then, you look at the individual charges, not the total, because the total is the thing you actually can't face. Here's the most important thing I want you to understand. Saving money is not primarily a math problem. It is a psychological problem. And psychological problems don't get solved with spreadsheets. They get solved with awareness, with honesty, with looking at your actual relationship with money, what it means to you, what you're afraid of, what you're using it to say about yourself, and deciding whether those things are actually true. Because here's what is true. You are not broken. You are not uniquely bad with money. You are a human being with a perfectly normal brain trying to navigate a financial landscape that is genuinely more difficult than it used to be. Inside a consumer culture that spends billions of dollars figuring out how to separate you from your money, while carrying invisible emotional weight about what money means to your identity and your safety. That's not an excuse to do nothing. It's context. It's the accurate picture of what you're actually dealing with. And when you understand what you're actually dealing with, not just the surface problem, but the root of it, you stop fighting yourself and start making different choices. Not because you've found more discipline, but because you've found more clarity. The people who are genuinely good with money aren't built differently. They've just, usually by accident or intention, developed a relationship with their finances that isn't governed by shame, avoidance, identity performance, or dopamine loops. They check their accounts regularly, not because they love spreadsheets, but because familiarity reduces anxiety. Things are scarier in the dark than in the light. When you look at your numbers every week, they stop feeling like a verdict and start feeling like information. And information you can work with. They've made saving automatic, not as a discipline strategy, but as a psychological one. When money moves before you can see it, you can't spend it. Your brain never registers it as available. It sidesteps the entire willpower equation, and they've made peace with looking different. With the smaller apartment, with driving the older car, with saying, "I can't afford that right now," out loud, without shame, in a world where everyone else is pretending they can afford everything. That last one might be the hardest, because it requires rejecting a story that the culture has been telling you your whole life. That your worth is visible. That it's measured in what you own, where you live, where you go, what you wear. It's not. Your worth has never once lived in your credit card statement. Here's what I'll leave you with. There will come a day, for some of you sooner, for some later, when you sit across from your future self. Maybe it's the moment you realize the retirement math doesn't work. Maybe it's a medical bill that decimates the account you thought was stable. Maybe it's just a quiet Saturday morning when you realize, with perfect clarity, that you've been running on a treadmill for 15 ERT. In that moment, your present self will wish it had made a different deal with your future self. Not a perfect deal, not a dramatic sacrifice, just a few small, consistent, unsexy choices made earlier, made often. The beautiful and terrifying truth is that you still have time to make those choices. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when the situation is better, now. While the gap between where you are and where you want to be is still closable. The psychology was always working against you, but now you know it. And knowledge is the only thing that ever changes the game.